told you we're over. I swear that I'm sober. Just listen, I miss you. And I know that I said
Welcome to the Arts and Industries building. We will be beginning in about 3 to 5 minutes.
that you miss me. Would you stay till the morning light? Or would you follow me? Or would you let it be? If I leave tonight, we could do this right. We'll find the remedy. Or would you stay with me now till the morning light? Till the morning light. Till the morning light. Till the morning light, yeah. Till the morning light. Till the morning light. Till the morning light, yeah. Maybe I'm just too weak. Maybe I'm just afraid of being alone. Well, I don't care, 'cause right now I feel the love that we said we would burn. Oh, I know that you feel it too. I know that I told
Hello,
you
I'm Mae Jemison. I'm a physician.
just listen, I miss you. And I know that I said all these things, but now when you're with her, I can see that you miss me. Would you stay till the morning light? Or would you follow me? Or would you let it be? If I leave tonight, we could do this right. We'll find the remedy. Or would you stay with me now till the morning light? Stay till the morning light. Or would you follow me? Or would you let it be? If I leave tonight, we could do this right. We'll find the remedy. Or would you stay with me now till the morning light? Would you stay till the morning light? Or would you follow me? Or would you let it be? If I leave tonight, we could do this right. We'll find the remedy. Or would you stay with me now till the morning light? Till the morning light. Till the morning light. Till the morning light, yeah. Till the morning light. Till the morning light. Till the morning light, yeah. I know that I told you we're over. I swear that I'm sober. Just listen, I miss you. And I know that I said all these things, but now when you're with her, I can see that you miss me. Oh no, anxiety creeps up on me. Is this how it's supposed to feel? Tell me when it's over. I got someplace that I gotta be. It won't leave. My friends say, get out of your comfort zone. It's a blessing in disguise. Get out of what you call home. Your name is written in the sky. It might feel just like you're on your own, but baby, it's another lie. Remember, you were me. I try to work, but it doesn't work. I try to say something, but there's no word. I try to justify my actions. Less reactions, heartbeat raising. Oh, it doesn't work.
Thank you for being here tonight. If there's an empty seat to your right, please slide down so that when people come in, they can just easily find their way into a seat and not cross over you during the experience. Thank you. Testing.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. Give it up for give it up for yourselves for coming in and joining us. All right. So something that we like to do here at the Arts and Industries building, this amazing, magical, and historic building, is start out with a chant to ground us in this amazing experience. Are you ready to join me? Oh, see, I like this crowd today. Wait a second.
Crowd, yes.
Okay, you ready? So I need you just to put your hands together. Stay on me, okay? Say, we rocks the party that rocks the party.
We rock the party that rocks the party.
Rocking the futures that we all dream.
Rocking the futures that we all dream.
Say, we rocks the party that rocks the party.
We rocks the party that rocks the
Yeah.
party.
Say, rocking the futures that we all dream.
Rocking the futures that we all dream.
Clap it up for yourselves,
All
y'all.
right.
Thank you so much.
Wow, you guys, we've came a long way. You're by far the best crowd. We even had music this time. It's just,
And y'all stayed on beat? Come on now. Listen. My name is Andre Latil Watkins. I am the lead of public programs and community engagement here at the Arts and Industries Building, and I'm joined by...
Donnie English, and I'm the programs manager here at the Arts and Industries Building.
So you have joined us for our interactive panel experience called Are We Interrupt Your Regularly Scheduled Panel? Say, ooh. And the topic of the day is future journeys at your fingertips. Give me an Yes. And so normally with this panel experience, we allow for you, the audience, to guide and to steer our conversation. In this instance, we're going to allow for there to be interruptions in which you are going to be taking on an immersive learning journey. Are you ready for this? Ooh, my little homie in the front, ready. How much specialized training would one need to take a trip to the moon or go deep sea diving into the deepest part of our oceans? These are unique experiences that more than a few of us may only ever have the chance to explore on television, the internet, through a book, or in a classroom.
I mean, but what if you and a friend could take that lunar trip without the need of specialized training or stepping onto a spaceship? Smithsonian has partnered with Meta to create the Moonwalk, only here at the Arts and Industries Building, a custom-built collaborative immersive learning environment that is making this idea into a reality. And AIB wants you to experience it with us.
We want you to experience it with us. Are you ready? Now, before we start, I want to make sure that we thank our sponsors, NBC Comcast, who is supporting this live stream. Give it up, give it up, give it up.
And we also want to thank Meta for occupying all of these headsets and this experience for you guys. Clap it up.
Excellent. So, as we get started, let's go ahead and invite our experts, our amazing panelists to the stage. Come
Clap
on,
it up.
y'all.
Give them some energy. We have an all-women panel tonight. That's amazing. Step on this side.
Who we got up first?
First, we have Ms. Andrea Contreras. Oh, yeah. She's a community-based science enthusiast and oceanographer from San Juan, Puerto Rico. She completed her BS and MS degree from Stanford University in the Earth Systems program, where she was focused on developing and designing tools and methods to help facilitate the collection of place-based data on coastal communities.
Give it up for Andrea.
Oh, yeah.
We also have Monica Arez. Give it up, give it up, give it up, give it up, give it up. Monica is the head of immersive learning at Meta, where she is focused on building an ecosystem that will allow anyone, anywhere, to learn and grow in the metaverse. With a focus on the future of learning, she believes immersive technology will increase access to education and fundamentally transform the way we learn. Give it up for Monica.
Who do we have next? Who do we have next?
Oh, I get to introduce her?
You get to introduce her.
Okay, so we got Rachel Goslings. Y'all give it up for Rachel. We a little biased because Rachel is the boss. And so, of the Arts and Industries Building, not just this building, you know what I'm saying? So Rachel Goslings is the director of the Arts and Industries Building. She is responsible for developing and implementing plans for the building, including programming, exhibitions, and infrastructure. Before joining the Smithsonian, Goslings was the executive director of the President's Committee on the Arts and Humanities in 2019 to 2015, which advises the White House on cultural policy. Give it up for Rachel, y'all.
And last but not least, we have the moderator with the mostest, the hostess with the mostest, one of our faves. She's like family here, Miss Emily Grassley. She's a science communicator and writer, video host, and educational media producer. She was the first ever Chief Curiosity Correspondent for the Field Museum in Chicago, creating more than 200 episodes for the popular natural history-themed channel, The Brain Scoop, and has received numerous accolades for her work, including the American Alliance of Museums Nancy Hanks Award for her professional excellence. And my favorite fun fact to tell about her, she has her own butterfly named after her.
Pew, 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 pew. We are getting ready to take you all on this amazing journey. We want to make sure that you're paying attention to your headsets. As a matter of fact, I have an amazing friend, an amazing person, an amazing expert who is going to be helping us and helping you to use your headset the proper way. Not the wrong way, the proper way. So I'm going to invite Wes Della Vala up to this stage.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Wesley Delavola, as Andre said, so thank you all for being here tonight. And with any good journey, especially one underwater or to space, you might need some specific technology to get you there, and you need to know how to use it to keep you having the best experience and, of course, enjoy the entire trip. So you should have one of these on your seat, and it should be there, and it should stay off of your head for now. I'll tell you when, but that moment is not right now. So the great thing is, we make it so you don't have to do anything. You're going to put the headset on when you're told to put the headset on. I think our moderator is going to make sure she reminds you when it's time to put the headset on. Again, we're not there quite yet. So with the headset, this is your device. And I recommend for anyone who has glasses or a large head like mine who can't wear hats, it's just as hard as it's large. My mom can confirm that. You'll go ahead and you want to put it on like you would a ski mask or swim goggles. So you want to put it eyes first, not yet. Eyes first. That way, especially if you have glasses, it can go right in and you can still see. But you're going to do that, but before you do, I'm going to show you what these straps do. So there's some straps here that keep the headset on your head. If you need to loosen it or tighten it, you can pull this off and it moves. If you have a very large head like mine, you're going to want to keep it as close to the strap as possible. If you happen to have a more petite dome, you want to go with that and pull it apart and it gets tighter. So you get to control that. And that's really important because if it's too loose, it may not seem clear when you're watching it. So in a minute, you're going to try this yourself. But before you do, I'm going to demo it like the good Southwest flight attendant I am. Your exits are probably nearer than you realize, but in the meantime, you're going to take the headset, eyes first, like I explained, pull it over your head, and then pull it back. Ooh, I think I'm near the mic. Yep, there we go. You'll look just as silly as I do, hopefully not trying to find a microphone, and then you'll know it's on. When you put the headset on, when the time comes, also, when you take it off, pull the strap off first, otherwise you'll do what I just did. You'll know that you're able to see things clearly. There'll be a logo inside. It'll say Meridian Treehouse. And if that is clear and crisp, you'll see every experience clear and crisp. So now is the time to try your headset on and make sure that logo is nice and crisp and clear. You should also see below that logo, you'll either see a little panel in the bottom left, it will say connected, or just below the logo, it will say connected. If you see anything else, raise your hand and we'll bring you a new headset that will work. And if at any point you have any trouble with the headsets, just go ahead and raise your hand like we're in grade school and we'll bring you a brand new headset. All right, so once the picture looks nice and clear and you can see everything, take that headset off and place it on your lap so we know that you're ready to go on this journey with us. And again, if you have any issues, please raise your hand. We'll bring you a brand new headset. And with that, we are ready for our departure. So I'm going to turn it back over to our amazing moderator, Emily.
We're going to wait a couple of minutes just to make sure that everyone in the audience has their headsets and that everything is working accordingly.
Yeah. And one note too, if you do put the headset on and you see a teal field of color, maybe move your head around left and right. You may see the logo there. All right, everyone ready? Everyone who's ready, go ahead, place your headset on your lap, and we'll begin the ride. And once you've got that looking nice and crisp, go ahead and take off the headset, set it on your lap, and we'll know we're ready to start the event. Looks like we've got most everyone ready. Just a quick reminder, if your headset is working, go ahead and take it off your head and place it on your lap, and we'll know we're ready to get started. All right, a reminder, if your headset is working, go ahead and place it on your lap so we know we can begin the rest of the event. If you see that teal background, you are probably good to go.
All right, Emily, I think we are ready to take it away.
Cool. All right. All right. Hey, everybody. Hey, thanks for being here in person. Thanks to Henri and Donnie. Thanks to AIB and the multimedia team and Meridian Treehouse and Meta and our ASL interpreters and everybody watching from home. That's everybody. Thanks, everybody. There's a lot of people coming together to make this happen. And I'm super excited today. This is something I've never done. I've done VR one time, and it was so cool and overwhelming. I lasted about 30 seconds. So I will be doing this with all of you. This will be so new for me, and I'm really excited that we get to do this together. So before we jump in for our exciting VR and AR experiences, we're going to talk a little bit about what is it that we're talking about today. We're discussing things about the metaverse, but that can be a term that has a lot of interesting interpretations. And so I think just really quick, we'll throw it out there to anybody who might want to answer it is, what is the metaverse that we're talking about today in terms of immersive learning environments?
I'm happy to take this. I actually love this question because I have never heard the same answer twice, which just goes to show you that it's still something that we are shaping and evolving. But in very broad strokes, it's just the next chapter of the internet. And so sometimes to think about where we're headed, it's often helpful to look back at where we've just been. And I think it's really interesting that over the past 40 years, every decade or so, we see this shift in computing paradigms that help us learn. So In the 80s, if I was curious about something, I had to open that encyclopedia. And if I was lucky, there was a paragraph, and if I was really lucky, there was a picture. And so I remember looking up moon landing, and there was that black and white image of the astronauts standing on the moon, and I was fascinated. And all I got were like 3 facts, names, dates, and maybe distance. But that was my window into that historical moment, and it was great. And then in the 1990s, suddenly we got desktop internet, which was revolutionary, but you were tethered to your desk either at home or at the computer, and it was just one-directional information. That's what we called Web 1. Web 2 is really what we're experiencing right now, where we have dynamic websites. We can be read, write, or create on that internet surfaces. We have opened up social media to really allow an entire generation of creators that wasn't capable before. And we got mobile devices, which suddenly let you access the internet whenever you wanted. So as soon as you were curious, you could just look it up. And that fully transformed how we learn and how we get access to it. Web 3, or the metaverse, is really just the next step in this evolution. And it's going to add layers of immersive technology. So augmented and virtual reality will allow you to create environments where you feel like you're present, where you can go there, you can interact with people with full body language, you can pass objects to each other, and really communicate as if you're in that same space, even if you're half a world apart from each other. And so that will completely transform our communication, our learning, and the way that we interact. We'll also have AR, which will add layers of information to your physical space, or allow you to bring in some 3D visualizations. So if you think about what that could actually do to transform learning, instead of looking at that picture in the encyclopedia, you can jump into it. And you can actually stand there where that astronaut was standing and see the Earth, moon, and sun with the exact same perspective as they did. And that is an incredible way to learn. So still evolving. It really will be realized, I think, by a collaborative effort among creators, developers, and organizations of all sizes. But we're just now taking that first step in.
I love that answer because I think it's so thorough and so you can really easily see from one decade to the next how fast the dissemination of information is happening. I mean, amazing here that we can have 150 VR headsets and there's hundreds of people streaming at home talking about this within the physical structure of a museum. And so I think this is a really great question for you, Rachel. We talk about immersive learning environments, and here we are immersed in a building. How do you take that one step further with technology when you're applying it into museums?
It's a great question. It's one I think the whole field is thinking about. When we were actually talking about the Meta installation, our lead curator for this exhibition and who helped with the Meta installation said, the museum is like the OG immersive learning experience, right? The museums is literally the place you go to be immersed in information and objects and ideas. So as you look at technologies like the ones we're going to experience today, the question is how can those technologies enhance that experience, deepen that experience, add to that experience without substituting for what it's like to stand in the presence of something crazy like this Bell helicopter and actually physically be near it. So that's great, and we want to keep that experience, but then what if you could fly in it with a VR experience, or what if with AR you could see inside of it, or learn interesting facts about it that you couldn't learn through a panel or a piece of. So the question is, how do you use technologies within the museum field to increase and augment the ways that we can share stories with people?
And Andrea, I know you've done a lot of education outreach on site in the ocean where you are an educator. What about for those of us, like I'm from Chicago, kind of a landlocked place? I'm probably not going to get an opportunity to dive with manta rays in the Great Lakes unless that is some amazing scientific discovery, freshwater environment. Anyway, how do you bring your knowledge and expertise to that, like from the ocean into the metaverse?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about getting people underwater, and obviously I don't see an ocean in DC. I can't take all of you there, but through the metaverse and like all these virtual reality, they work as tools that really help bring like whatever's underwater out to the surface. They're able to really, take people to really cool sites underwater, and like I'm able to take you all on a dive just like I would if I was taking a group out back home in the Caribbean. And this was one of the coolest things I learned when I was in college, I got involved with one of my professors in like a design class, and she works for like a group, the Hydrus, and she that works to really get information about the ocean and knowledge about the ocean out in front of people so they can learn about it, take action. Like, that was just incredible because, you know, this is a place I really love, and I got all the tools to take everyone there. So yeah, I see it as a bridge to really get people going to where you can't physically take them and hopefully get them excited about it.
So all of us up here, we have different expertise, different backgrounds. Not necessarily all of us are programmers or developers or computer scientists. I'm not. How did you all get into this, just briefly, given your background, your expertise, and how you're bringing that to this new wide world of technology? And it can just be a really brief introduction, but how did you see that initially showing up in your work? And we could start with you, Andrea.
Yeah, so I guess when I first saw it, again, back in school, I was trying to figure out, so my research and what I'm interested is getting people from their communities to be able to do the science and do the observations. That's gonna let us find out what's happening, and it's gonna let us take care of our homes and the places we love. And through experience with virtual reality, I was able to kind of glimpse into that. And once I started, right, it was such a cool way for everyone, not just to really like make it easier for people to go into their homes and like have a tool that helped facilitate that experience, because not everyone's super comfortable going out everywhere, but it was also a way for all of us to connect the places we love with each other and be able to share it out to larger audiences, which is really awesome.
So I was actually an educator for 10 years, and I feel like I spent every night trying to create lessons that were visually rich and engaging and tie the real world to what we were doing. And I always felt really limited by 2D surfaces. PowerPoint only got me so far. And so my real goal wasn't actually to make my students mathematicians or astronomers. It was just to have them feel that adrenaline rush that you get from feeling curious about something, in hopes that they would then take that with them and become lifelong learners. And so when I got my first VR demo, I just remember the second I put that headset on, I knew instantly that it was the medium that I needed to create those kinds of lessons. And I just feel really fortunate. I have been able to dedicate my career to that ever since.
So I'm a museum director, but this is actually my third or fourth career, depending on how you calculate it. And I've always been engaged in creative storytelling. I was a documentary filmmaker for about a decade. I was a policy advocate for about another decade. And telling stories is sort of my lifeblood. And so in the museum context, right, we are buildings full of amazing stories, and just figuring out new ways to tell those stories is so exciting. So then when we did an exhibition called The Futures, thinking about what the future of storytelling was absolutely one of the places that we started at the very beginning. How can we use new technologies in lots of different ways? And this is a key one to just expand our palette of storytelling devices.
I love all of those answers because I feel like I see some of myself in all of them. I'm an informal educator. I use digital and broadcast media to share stories about science and education, to bring people places that they can't go. And so here I am like, oh, this is the metaverse is the future of education. And being able to share that with everybody here, I think is going to be, you will all be geeking out over this as much as we will be. So we're going to get into our first expedition pretty soon. And Andrea, can you talk a little bit about what we might be seeing on our first journey?
Yeah, all right. So if you guys have an ear, it's kind of soft, right? Yeah, so we're gonna look at manta rays. Their bones are made out of cartilage, so same as our ears, and this is a really large marine animal that, yeah, we're gonna see them swim through. And as you guys are kind of on this underwater experience, I'm gonna talk you through some of the things. I'm gonna point out some details for you to observe, and you're just gonna get to observe some of the coolest things underwater just hanging out in their natural habitat. So yeah, really excited.
So everybody, this is your cue to put on your headset. You're gonna place it over your head. If you need support, the Meta brand ambassadors are around. And we're gonna get started. I'm excited.
All right, so you guys can see one right now. So that move they're doing is called a barrel roll. It's actually trying to eat right now. So because all the food is in the water. So manta rays can be about 16 feet across, from wingtip to wingtip if they're in a reef, and oceanic manta rays, which you tend to find further out in the ocean, can be up to 23 feet across. Yeah, so there's another one, something that's, so some of you guys might have heard of stingrays. Stingrays and manta rays are actually quite different. Stingrays have a little venomous barb in their tail. Manta rays are gentle giants. They don't even have teeth. As they're swimming through the water, they're able to just kind of take in plankton, which are little organisms that live in the water, and filter feed through it, which is really cool. You'll see some wings on the side of its head. Those are called cephalic lobes, and those are some gills that helps them eat. They actually funnel water into their mouths. So what you're looking at right now is a manta train. They do this behavior to feed. If you look at those cephalic lobes we talked about earlier, when they're extended, they're eating. If you see them with it wrapped up, they're just flying through the water.
This is the coolest frickin' thing I've ever done in my life.
So mantas are part of a group of animals called pelagic flyers, which includes penguins, sea turtles, and any organism that moves its fins up and down to get through the water. So let me see. Yeah, the manta you're seeing right now is called Bianca. And she'll get closer soon. Make sure you guys take a look at her belly. You might see some fish hanging onto there. Those are called remoras, and they actually suction on to their stomachs and kind of just hitch a ride, which I know I wouldn't want to swim. If you look at the bellies, they have individual markings, and every manta ray actually has a different marking. So a lot of scientists can identify them and keep track of them as they go. There's some really cool projects where people who swim and dive keep track of them. So the one that's coming out to us right now is called Bianca.
Wow.
And you'll see her belly.
I'm like, oh goodness. See you there. I know, right? Sorry.
So the next manta we see is a black manta or a melanistic manta. These are super rare, so it's a really exciting thing to see. And again, you'll see the belly, it has different markings, and their name is 8-ball, which I think is a really cool one.
This is amazing. Who is this diver that I keep looking at?
So that is Erica. And if you guys look at her movements, you'll see that she has her hands tucked into her and is being really respectful with the distance she's keeping. And that's kind of how, as divers, we can help support the marine life we're trying to take care of. Oh, that's 8-ball right there, so they're coming through really close.
And Dorea, where was this filmed?
So I think this was in Palau. Yeah. So that's an island in the Pacific Ocean, so pretty far from us. Yep, that's a great barrel roll. And again, you can see the diver keeping her distance from them, tucking her hands in, and just getting to enjoy the show.
Oh my God.
So you guys are seeing the same thing she is seeing when she's in the water.
I can't wait to watch the recording of this panel and just see my head like whip around.
All right, everybody, you can take your headsets off.
All right, everybody get a heck yeah if that was the coolest thing ever. Heck yeah. Whoa! Wow. I'm blown away. I kind of didn't want to come back. I mean, this panel's awesome, but wow. Okay, so I have been lucky to have been snorkeling like once in my life, but I have really terrible eyesight. So I can't actually see anything underwater. It didn't even occur to me that this would be a way for people, just even with a disability as common as needing glasses, this could open a whole new world of seeing it, just for that. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna take a minute.
No, it's awesome.
I need to calm down.
Yeah.
That was exciting. Wow.
It really gives immersive, like a whole nother sense, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there's so much that I loved about that experience. I haven't done that before, and I wasn't expecting it. But you know, if I had any question about how that transcends normal classroom experience, that, you know, that's been answered. And it also makes me think, you know, we talk a lot about how these techniques are useful to teach more information, to spark curiosity, but you know, how many people want to go scuba diving with manta rays now, right? But also, you know, I think about this a lot, you know, what we care about, we want to protect. And so another really interesting aspect to me as I'm looking at that beautiful ocean and those gorgeous creatures is how this creates also like an emotional connection to things in our lives and in our planet that we want to you know, we want to protect and we want to care for, and it creates this emotional connection that, you know, you could only get if you went diving in Hawaii, which is totally on my bucket list now. So I don't know, that was really powerful.
No, I love that answer, and I was going to ask you the same. How is it for you?
It hits you differently. I think, you know, oftentimes we think of learning kind of gets stuck in the images up here, and it really hits you differently. But I also love that right now you are experiencing the old way of learning. You are sitting in rows, you're quiet, and you're learning through listening. But what just happened is you put the headset on, and the walls disappeared, and the seats went away, and you got to be fully immersed in this environment where you got to dictate where you looked. And you didn't have to just do that one tiny screen that someone told you to look at. You could choose your own adventure in how you wanted to focus, maybe on the little fish at the bottom, not the manta ray or the diver. And so I think it unlocks the thought process of curiosity and wonder much more than a kind of prescribed experience would. And what I love about VR is when you're in the headset, your brain actually gets tricked into thinking you're there. And I think it's because everywhere you look, you're in the environment. You don't have the border that goes across a TV screen or a video. And so you get to really connect with the story, with the imagery, with all the emotions that it evokes. And then when you take your headset off, you feel like you traveled somewhere. That's a really incredible thing to be able to bring into a learning environment.
Yeah, so I don't know. I didn't have a mask. Like, I called it a mask because that's what you wore when diving. I didn't have a headset on, and I don't know if you guys felt it, but all of you in the audience were like whooshing back when I came close to you. It was really fun to see, so that was really great.
Yeah, I mean, I can just imagine how easy is it to like update these experiences? How easy is it to add more context? For instance, if you had a few of those video clips that you were able to watch online, because anybody at home too, this is open access. You could also go on the dive as well. If you have a Google Cardboard, which I think is a little bit more cost-friendly than one of these beautiful sets. But what are some of the other ways that we could build on this same experience?
Yeah, so this is actually what my team over at the Hydrus, and they made the film you guys all just watched, is working towards. It's really cool because, you know, we have some experiences, and you can access a lot of ours online, and you can watch it, again, on your phone, and you can move your phone up and down and, like, be underwater. You could use a cardboard. You could download it into, like, a VR headset that you can find. But we have some experiences where we actually take you through a story, where we actually have narration. We have information pop up. And you're not just scuba diving, but we actually have, like, facts come up, and you know what kind of fish you're looking at. You can zoom in to a head of coral, and you can see what happens to a polyp, and you learn about coral bleaching, which is something that's impacting a lot of our coastal communities and coral reefs worldwide. So, you know, you can kind of annotate the experience as you go. You can also just have it in your phone, and like, if you see something cool, share it with like your brother or sister. That's as soon as I got a hold of these headsets during the pandemic when I couldn't dive, I like dragged my entire family underwater for this. But yeah, there's all sorts of things you can do, and it's so customizable to whatever you're interested in learning about.
So that was our first VR experience, virtual reality experience, but we're not just talking about virtual reality today. We're also talking about augmented reality. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between virtual reality and augmented reality, and how that can apply specifically to a museum setting in a way that it might not be as applicable in the ocean?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'm definitely not the technical expert on this panel. You know, VR, virtual reality, is an entirely immersive experience where you are in some kind of headset, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and you can't see the world around you because you are in this immersed reality. Augmented reality, which is also mixed reality, right? Is that the same thing?
Not quite.
Damn it. The other kind of reality is where you use your phone, or you can use goggles or that kind of thing to superimpose digital content on the physical world around you. So you can look through your phone and see a manta ray swimming across this hall, but you can also see the hall, and I could see all of you guys. You know, I don't know that there is, I mean, obviously there's a difference, but they're all just different tools in storytelling. And so for some of them, it's great to be able to place an object in your environment and walk around it and look at it, but also have it, you know, what was that, the game, Pokemon Go was an early example of this. And so that's the tool you need as a storyteller. And other times you want to put them at the bottom of the ocean and you don't want them to be distracted by all the things around them. So it's really just this, you know, kit of new storytelling devices that are available to us. But Monica, do you want to add anything to my incredibly imprecise definition?
No, it was great. It was great. We're all just learning and figuring it out. But again, virtual reality requires equipment. There can be a bit of a barrier to access for some people for that. And augmented reality, the way that we consume it right now is through a mobile device, which makes it a lot more lightweight, easy to get into, and it adds layers into your experience that you have in front of you, or it can bring in 3D visualizations. So if you want to pop something up and explore it and expand it and kind of go into it, it's really helpful for those types of experiences. And so we are about to walk you through just, again, a lightweight AR experience so that you understand the difference between the two. Both of them can be very immersive, can add a lot of incredible layers to learning and how we interact with the world around us. But right now, there's slightly different approaches to how we actually experience it.
And we'll show you guys how to do that. So I think we're ready to move into the next example that we're going to share with everybody. You will need your cell phone for this. So if people have a cell phone, and you'll also need Instagram on your cell phone, but there's a QR code on the back of the chair in front of you, on the back of the chair that's in front of you. So you'll take your phone out, scan the QR code, and yeah, just using your camera.
All right, so you're going to open the camera. It'll take you to a landing page where there's a link, and you can just open that link. And it'll say tap to place. And when you do, what we've done is we've recreated something you might see in a museum, which is a statue. And oftentimes when we go to museums, we see things as they have aged. Sometimes the paint has faded, or they have been a little bit oxidized, or maybe even some pieces are missing. If you go to the right of your screen, it's a little bit hidden, so you might have to pull it over, but there's a slide bar that goes up and down. And when you slide that down, this beautiful little statue gets restored into what she originally looked like, with the original paint, the original colors, and in her original form. And when you slide it back up, you see her as she is today. And so it's a nice way for us to, again, do something we can't do in real life, which is travel through time. And so these technologies allow some of the impossible, whether it's too dangerous or it's too hard for us to do it through our current technology. And this is just one quick example.
I love this so much. So, you know, and we don't have to go into all the specifics about the tech, but here I'm looking at a three-dimensional model that I can manipulate digitally on my phone.
Yep.
When you put on a headset, you can look around 360 view. How are we able to even get this level of detail with the images? Like, what kind of technology, camera work is going into creating these experiences?
Yeah, starting actually with the two we just saw, there are a couple of techniques. One is you can get 360 cameras. It looks like a whole ball of cameras that can capture what we just saw when you were swimming with manta rays. And that's actual video and footage. None of that was CGI or computer-generated content. With Augmented reality, you can actually use almost the same technique at the most basic level. You go and you take thousands and thousands of pictures of an object, and you can stitch it together using photogrammetry, which is actually something you'll see in the next experience as well in VR. Or you can start to digitally scan objects and bring them in, or you can actually create them as a 3D artist and bring them into software that then allows you to animate them or add extra context or extra special effects to them. So the slide bar that you saw, that was added later. The ability to interact with it through different tapping on the screen, that was added later for that functionality. But you can create VR experiences that are completely computer generated, and those allow you to walk forward and back. They allow you to interact with objects and have things happen because of cause and response. And so many, many ways to enter into creating with these technologies, from very lightweight with your own phone all the way up to things that take a lot of time and a lot of money to produce.
So this is digitization, is A, a hard word to say very quickly, and B, something we're thinking about a lot in the museum field. Digitization loosely is taking tangible objects and turning them into digital assets. So that can be scanning a picture, so you have a digital, or it can be 3D scanning a statue. We have a whole digitization program office here at the Smithsonian that is trying to do this with elements of our collection. And actually you'll see, we can come back to that after our next experience. So that's a little Easter egg. But you know, as we think about the future of museums, we think about how do we get these amazing objects from our collection into people's living rooms, into their classrooms, into their Minecraft games. And to do that, you need to digitize them. So, you know, this is not, and it does not take an insignificant amount of time or resources to do that. We have 155 million objects in the Smithsonian collection.
Woo!
And at the current rate, with the current technology, it would take us 300 years working 24 hours a day to digitize all of those objects. You know, clearly the technology is going to expand and improve on how we digitize things, but we think a lot about how we can take these objects that up until now you had to travel to Washington, D.C. to see, and by the way, you can only see a tiny fraction of them. 10% of our Smithsonian collections are actually shown in our museums. We have warehouses and warehouses, gorgeous, like crazy places like the last scene in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom with just, you know, crates of crazy, precious, and amazing things that nobody can see because we don't have enough space. So the idea of being able to digitize those and make them available, you know, as I said, not just in an educational context, but also to, you know, put into games and to link to on Wikipedia and to let people play with and put into their own, you know, collections and their own experiences is a huge frontier for us in museum storytelling, and one we're really excited about.
I think I love that so much because what you're sort of talking about is this democratization of knowledge. I think, because my background's in the museum field as well. I come from a large natural history museum, and we talk a lot about that evolution of learning. So 125 years ago, you come to a museum like this, and you read an exhibit label written by a curator who knows way more than anybody should ever know about freshwater clams or what, you know. I mean, there's always things to know about freshwater clams. But right, we never know enough, in my opinion. But you know, that was kind of the old school, like the expert has your empty vessel of knowledge and everybody pours the information and you're just the receptacle for someone else's expertise. But kind of what we're talking about is by making these objects available, people will be able to come to their, you know, be able to interpret them in new contexts. People who, you know, it's an object that may have been removed in a cultural context, and someone who has a deeper connection, you know, to an object 50 years later might be able to offer their own insights or information about museums. So this VR, this AR experience, is this sort of a way that education is evolving to be a little bit more, I don't want to say collaborative, but it sort of offers a little bit more creativity or more input on part of the learner. Is that a fair assumption?
I hope so. I think that's an incredible assumption. I think just like it goes to that future of storytelling where suddenly it's an entire environment that you get to explore and look at and understand the way that you want it to make sense to you, bringing in objects now and allowing more people to be creators in this space. It's going to allow us to not just go with what we see, in printed text, but understand like whose stories do we really want to tell? And now that's going to become infinitely easier in a new medium that I think really does exactly what we were just trying to describe, bringing together new creators, new storytelling platforms, and new opportunities to bring these assets together, to really think about how we learn differently.
Yeah, and something I would add, right? So we're not just able to get a piece in a museum and make it accessible to everyone by digitizing it and like start a conversation. I think it allows for a lot of people to collect their own like digital models of the world around them and kind of upload those and just like really increase the amount of knowledge that we have access to. And I know that's something that in like research and monitoring in my field we're really looking at, and I know it's like a lot of like really cool artistic projects. So I think that's really exciting too, because anything could be like some sort of like communicative exhibit.
The really fun thing too is if you go to a museum and we've been able to take these assets now, you can turn your entire living room into a museum. You can pull in the pieces of artwork you want to put in your living room or the statues and show somebody else how you've decorated it. And so the more these things become accessible, the more we actually break down the walls of museums and schools and homes, and we allow us to transport all of these different assets and ways of learning across those three, which is going to be a really fun thing to see evolve.
And today, I'm curious, have you, or could you imagine, I think about this diving experience, have students or people who have seen this, have they come to you with new observations or new ideas that you were like, I hadn't even thought about that?
Yeah, so one of the coolest things from like taking so many groups out to do virtual reality and like talking to people who've been like virtual dive guides is that, when you're showing someone like a picture of something in the ocean, again, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but they'll see like exactly what's on the screen. They'll see the really big manta that like the lens takes you to. But when you have access to like 360 degrees of ocean around you, it's like someone might be looking forward, but you can look up, you can look down, you can look all around, and like, people notice like, again, like a little fish on the side of a manta, or they'll notice a worm crawling in the coral. It's really similar actually to when I take groups of divers underwater and like I let them just kind of hang out around the spot. I like to do like 5 minutes of like hovering with my students when I'm taking them scuba diving, just so they really learn to take in the environment around them. And like the things they see are insane because it really increases like not just like the amount of time you're able to spend in a place, but the contacting your freedom over how you're accessing it, which I don't know, that's really awesome because I don't see everything and I love things pointed out to me.
Yeah, I love that. Just another crowdsourcing, idea. There's a program called Zooniverse if you want to go online, and it's a community or citizen science-based digital platform. You'll have places like the Adler Planetarium uploads a bunch of open access images that have been taken by satellites in space, and you can go through image by image, and people have even discovered brand new solar systems. Like people just at home flipping through, just images from NASA. So potentially this is the same sort of thing. It gives everybody like new ways of exploring and not just looking at a single image, but maybe a whole environment.
Yeah, so for my research, when I was like doing my master's, right, I actually took a bunch of scuba divers and students snorkeling and scuba diving and had them photograph a ton of images of coral bottoms, and we got 3D maps of the areas around where we lived, which was really magical because you could actually measure them and understand that environment way faster and way more easily than like you would if you had to like go and count and measure like the individual ridges in the plains, which was awesome.
That's so cool. All right, who's ready to go to the moon? Woo! All right. So I'm very excited about this. This is a super special program. Okay, sorry. Okay, don't put your mask on yet. I was going to say that the first environment, the manta ray, you can go online and you'll be able to revisit that. If you want to see this next thing, you got to be here right at the Smithsonian here at AIB. So we're going to go to the moon, and before we do that, we are going to be hearing a special message from the first African-American woman to travel in space, Dr. Mae Jemison. She's not here physically, but there's a video. I'm sorry, that was like a little bit of a ramp up. I mean, that was rude of me to put it that way. That was unintentional. There's a video of Mae Jemison. I promise it's still good. Yeah, Mae Jemison needs it. She gets her own amp up song. Pump stage. Yeah, pump up song.
Hello, I'm Mae Jemison. I'm a physician, a former astronaut, an engineer, a wannabe dancer, and a social scientist. But I believe my most important role is to improve access for people learning about science, technology, and social responsibility. When Neil Armstrong first set foot on the moon, as a girl on the south side of Chicago, I felt like I was there with him as I watched the television fixated. I could imagine more than just what was on the screen, having learned about the moon and followed the NASA Apollo space program. It felt as though I was there, and it would have been even better if I could have directed the camera and looked around to where I wanted to. Yet sharing that moment in time was very special and one I never forgot. When I look at what has become possible with advances in technology today, what's incredible is that through immersive capabilities, you can visit, explore, and learn about places and ideas that you could have only imagined. Immersive learning can connect and engage people to new opportunities. Immersive experiences in virtual and augmented reality can be a fundamental tool to evolve the way people learn and unlock knowledge. Whether you're 18 or 80, being able to stand on the moon and explore the landscape yourself is a powerful experience that is only the beginning of learning in the metaverse.
We're going to jump into this. Don't put your headset on first. I'm going to let you talk a little bit about how this experience was created, because this is a really, really special project.
I'm so excited for you guys to about to go to the moon, but I did want to point out that what you're about to see is not an artist's interpretation of what it's like to stand on the moon, which is normally what you see in VR when you go up into space, because it's frankly very hard to get up there. It's actually the 7,000 archival 2D images that were taken from cameras that were strapped to the suits of the astronauts who were up there over the course of their missions. And again, only 12 people have actually been able to walk on the moon. And so to see it as if you're walking in their footsteps, and again, see the Earth and the moon and the sun with the exact same perspective that they did, when you really stop and think about it, it's just in a completely different way to experience that moment in history. And so I think the other thing that's really special about it is that the Smithsonian was the very first place that housed the original artifacts. And so you're sitting right in the same place that first brought the moon rock, where people traveled for miles to come see it, and the command module, and some of the images that have been stitched together, so that now we're not looking just at these 2D images, you're actually transporting yourself into it to have that same experience. So let's go. You want to add to it?
Can I say one thing, because I love this experience? Don't forget to look up every once in a while, because there's like don't forget to look up.
Yeah. All right, strap on your spacesuits, guys.
You're go for LOI.
16, roger, go for LOI.
Apollo 16 spacecraft has passed behind the moon.
Roger.
Loss of signal.
50 years ago, 12 astronauts traveled 240,000 miles to walk on the surface of the moon.
Hello, Houston. Suite 16 has arrived.
Roger 16, copy you loud and clear.
Houston, this is the most spectacular view that you could possibly imagine.
3 guys have each got a window, and we're staring at the ground.
Boy, it's just beautiful up here. Looking out the window is just really fantastic.
Across 6 Apollo missions from 1969 to 1972, they took some 7,000 photographs.
To this day, these snapshots are all we have. No one else has ever experienced the alien lunar landscape the way they did, until now. Using only the real photographs taken by the astronauts and the real sounds from the NASA archives, you are about to time travel across the Apollo missions and be immersed in the same lunar landscape that only 12 people in human history have ever experienced.
Surface is fine and powdery. I can pick it up loosely with my toe.
Unofficial time on the first step, 109.2420.
Standing directly in the shadow now, looking up at Buzz in the window. Okay, Buzz, we ready to bring down the camera? I'm all ready. Okay, it's quite dark here in the shadow and a little hard for me to see it. I have good footage. I'll work my way over into the sunlight here.
Oh, that looks beautiful video.
It has a stark beauty all its own. It's like much of the high desert of the United States. It's different, but it's very pretty out here. Beautiful view. Isn't that something? Magnificent sight.
Where you been? I fell down. I just got my first initiation to getting very dirty. You sure did. I haven't quite learned how to pick up rocks with my hands yet. That's why I fell down. You know, you just got to take it easy until you learn to work in 16G. Well, I haven't learned to pick up rocks, which is a very embarrassing thing for a geologist. Yeah, I look like an elephant stumbling around here. Okay, I got my camera. Okay, I'm going to take a little spin around here, and I'll meet you at the front end. Challenger's baby is on the roll.
Roger, copy that. Sounds great.
Come towards me, baby. Don't run over me. Don't worry. How's that? Man, if they don't like this. Wow. Houston, boy, it really is something.
I tell you, they never make movies like these.
I think we ought to park over here near that big boulder. Man, are you going to get a picture now?
Oh, yeah. We can hardly wait.
That's about as far as I want to take it.
Sounds like an interesting crater in any case.
Man, wait till you see the bottom of it. It's clearly a darker rim crater. Oh, hey! Wait a minute. What? Where are the reflections? I've been fooled once. There is orange soil. Well, don't move it till I see it. It's all over. Orange. Hey, it is. I can see it from here. It's orange.
Copy that.
Hey, Bob, from where I am, about 100 meters around the west side of the rim of this crater, and there's a lot of orange stuff that goes down radially down into the pit of the crater. Wait a minute, let me put my visor up. It's still orange. Sure it is. Guess we gotta leave, otherwise it'd be nice to sample that dark stuff up on top.
We need you guys rolling in 7 minutes.
We can get a spoon. Oh, I'll bet I'm out of film. I'm out of film. I got it. Oh, you got it? Got it. Let's go.
Hey, babe, this is really the moon. It's the most awe-inspiring sight I've ever seen in my life. It's really beautiful, Pete. Challenger, your go for liftoff.
Roger, understand. Challenger, go for liftoff. Okay, Jack, double check your logic power breaker. Check. Engine arm is out. Okay, I'm going to get the pro. 99, proceeded. 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Right away, Houston.
Does the experience of standing on the moon make you more eager to learn and explore? Does it open your eyes to new possibilities? Does standing on the moon change the way you want to learn?
50,000 times? Andrea, let's start with you first.
I was like spinning in my chair. I saw the earth. I saw like the cars moving. It was crazy. I have never been anywhere, like obviously never been anywhere like that. That was really cool.
I was a kid that went to space camp twice so that I would be ready when NASA announced that they were going to send a kid into space, and I missed that chance. But this for me is, yeah, it's my childhood dream. It's everything that I always liked to spend time thinking about. Now we just have to put a camera that's always on up on the moon that we can dial into from our headsets whenever we want to look around and get that perspective. Or Mars, and think of all the places that we can now plant these cameras so that we can pop in whenever we feel like visiting.
We have the panda cam here, so we can just move over. Yeah, no, so many like just little moments. It's kind of what you were saying about the coral reef, like the scope of it was fantastic, but like just looking down and seeing the footprints, or that moment where you realize, holy crap, that's the earth, and it's this beautiful marble in the sky. Like it's such an emotional experience.
Yeah, that's really what I kind of wanted to talk about, and I wish I had prepared enough so that I could have memorized all of Carl Sagan's fantastic pale blue dot monologue, but that is sort of, for those who aren't familiar, it is this phenomenon that some astronauts who've landed on the moon have had, that when they're standing on the surface of the moon and they look up and you see the earth from a different perspective, it is the sentiment that everybody who's ever lived, every event, every tree that has grown, every trilobite, that every extinction, all of our families, back to 2 million years when we walked out of Africa. I mean, all of that happens here. Do you think there is an opportunity for that? Did you guys feel a little bit of that in yourself, just even in this virtual experience? I know I did. Yeah. I don't know. I think there's just something really special about that.
Well, I mean, we talk a lot about what this technology can do in terms of learning, and that is incredibly important, and this is a panel on immersive learning. I now will never forget what a barrel roll is by a manta ray, whereas if I'd read that in a magazine, it might have gone in one ear and out the other. But I do think this ability to create emotion is, great teachers can do that sometimes, great literature can do that, but it is what we chase in educational environments and in other environments. One of the things I like about VR, it's been called the empathy machine, because it allows you to put yourself in someone else's shoes or be somewhere else. I remember very early in the days of VR, there was a museum in the South who did a very early VR experience of being Rosa Parks on the bus. And so the camera is your eyes, and somebody comes and tells you to get off the bus, and you ignore them, and you look to the side, and people are not catching your eye. And I mean, you've read that story 100 times, but actually being in that seat and deciding not to move while somebody's yelling at you to like move to the back of the bus makes you understand that story in such a more profound way. And then so does looking up and seeing this little blue marble in the sky. So thinking of this as a machine that helps us create empathy and connection, which we always need more of, I think, as we turn increasingly to technologies, is a really powerful aspect of it for me.
Yeah, I agree. And Monica, you mentioned something while we were in backstage, something I hadn't even thought about, but how COVID had an impact on the learning environment that, I mean, obviously we were all impacted by it, but in a way that VR, AR could help bring people together. Can you talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah, I was actually just reflecting on how, I got into this industry about 5.5 years ago, and I would go talk about AR and VR, and most people were a little bit curious and a whole lot skeptical, right? They were like, okay, that doesn't really make sense. But then the pandemic hit, and suddenly we were forced into this global experiment of online learning. And we had to figure out how to teach people when suddenly we couldn't engage them in classrooms or field trips or labs or practicums. And we realized you can bring access to learning through the internet, which is great, but it primarily delivered knowledge. And that to have a really deep, meaningful learning experience, as you were saying, it actually requires making sure that we're bringing in and unlocking the curiosity and the imagination and the connection. And so it was that moment where we realized we needed to find solutions that were based in allowing us to explore, even if we couldn't physically get there, or connect with each other as avatars and have body language as part of that communication and learning. And I think that's what slowly opened up the affordances of the metaverse as a really intriguing way to increase access to education and fundamentally transform how we learn. And so that time and the technology evolution and the need for us to really focus on what is it that we're missing from the current model of learning. I always say we have this great hybrid model of part in person, part online, and I think the future will slowly get us into what we're calling the tribrid model, where we're going to be able to seamlessly shift between in-person, online, and these simulated environments through this technology.
So I'm gonna ask a question to wrap up about what we're hopeful for this technology. But first, I want to be a little bit of a devil's advocate and say, what are the limitations here? What are the things, what are the barriers to entry? What are the things that AR, VR can't do? Some of those challenges. Maybe, Andrea, do you want to talk with you?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of my time I spent back home in Puerto Rico and the Caribbean, and we had really bad hurricanes a few years ago and we didn't have power for 11 months, right? That's not a technology that was accessible. There wasn't data, so I could download a really cool virtual reality thing. But, so I think there's a big limit to access, both in cost and in just bandwidth. And I know those systems are getting better, but that is something that is a little limited. I also think, right, I really care about protecting our oceans and our communities, and virtual reality can get you to learn about our oceans and to empathize with them and care about these places. But, the next step is kind of on you and your community to go out and protect your home. So I think those are some of the limitations, but yeah.
I agree, and I think also not only limitations in hardware, there's always limitations in hardware when we release it, but also in creating the content. It's not easy. It does take a lot of time, it takes a lot of funding, and so we need to start to get better at the tools that we need for creation so that we can expand upon the experiences that people can have.
Yeah, and I would say, as much as we spent this panel, rhapsodizing about these amazing experiences and what they're capable of, also we need to be conscious of the sort of siren song of technology, that it's the answer to everything, and it's not. It is part of the solution, but it's a tool, it's not a strategy. I've talked about this consistently as an addition to our toolkit, but there are learning experiences that need to be in person, that should be in person. You can see this on your screen, you can, go experience it in VR, but it's also really cool to stand in its presence. So, I guess just being conscious of really two aspects. One, to make sure that we're conscious about what stories are best in this environment and what stories are better in other environments. And then also to think about how to create deep learning experiences as opposed to, TikTok learning when you're like, oh, that's cool. And then you move on. Or it's cool, I see a manta ray. But you don't actually learn about the barrel roll and the coral reef that they're going over. So to get past, the blinginess of it and figure out where the opportunities are for really deep learning is, I think, not necessarily a limitation, but a challenge as we continue to explore this field.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a sandbox, excited, woo, look at all the sand castles we can build. And then you're like, oh, it's still made out of sand, though. Yeah, maybe we should make the infrastructure a little bit more solid before we make gigantic cities out of sand. I don't know how well that metaphor plays out, but
it's going with our beachy theme. It's working.
I'm just thinking about, swimming with manta rays. So that was a little bit of the things that we know AR, VR can't do, but we're talking about, this is an emerging technology. It's only going to go up from here. So let's say 10, 20, 50 years in the future, what will these technologies look like, or how much further can we take them? And we're in the futures exhibit, so I'll put it out there. Do we get holographic machines? Where's my Star Trek transporter? Are those things that we can do with VR, AR? Holographic stuff? I mean, how much more of a step is that than doing a 3D scan and then having it,
Yeah, Holograms are real already, so we can figure that out for you.
What? I'm like, wait, what? Where have I been?
I know. I think, honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that actually the potential is limitless right now. And I like to think of, if you could combine like that scene in Mary Poppins where they jump into the sidewalk chalk drawing with Miss Frizzle's Magic School Bus, and you just merge them, and anywhere you can go and play with scale and travel and size and all the things that are currently impossible in environments that take you there, where you can interact with other people and you can explore, and you keep taking that into technology that gets more socially acceptable and easier to wear and easier to consume, and eventually, we have a very different world in front of us, and how we unlock that.
And Drea, for you, like as a scientist, does this resonate in a different way?
Yeah, and I think a way I would extend that out is like, this is such a great tool to like bridge people to either the research they're gonna do or the place they're gonna observe. It's a great place to like train them and build the capacity so they're able to go out and do that. So I see it as a really, and like, also to like, you might be scared of going to like a forest or underwater or a city, and this is a really like, we're a lot more comfortable with our phones and the technology around us in a place we've never been to before that we don't understand. So this is a great like portal into that and like tool to start building up your ability to go out to other places and like help connect like other places to like your like I guess metaverse a lot, but yeah.
Well, I think you stole my punchline. Like we've come full circle actually to the way that Monica answered the first question, which is thinking of the evolution of these technologies. It's not like anything is so wildly different than the thing before it. It's just a better, richer, deeper version of whatever went before it. And so when I think about the future, and I'm not a, technologist or a futurist per se, but I imagine what's going to happen is these technologies are just going to become more seamlessly integrated in our lives. So we're not pulling something out of our pocket and connecting to Wi-Fi, but we're, popping on a pair of glasses, or we're moving into spaces that have both physical and digital capabilities at the same time. And so it just becomes more of a metaverse, more of something that is all around us versus more something that is kind of, compartmentalized in a device.
I love this. I love this so much. And if I could just emphasize one last thing, and I know we've gone on quite a bit today, but just think about the space that you're in today. Think about the first inauguration of which president happened here. I can't remember.
James A. Garfield.
James A. Garfield had his presidential inauguration in this building. And here we are today. Y'all had a bunch of VR headsets on. We went to the moon. We went to the ocean. The power of museums. It's the power of accessible education. It's the power of people bringing their diverse skill sets together. We've got scientists, we've got museum directors, we've got educators, we've got IT people. We have all of you here who are excited, interested participants. We can all champion this kind of work, and not just the technology itself, but I think a lot of the themes of what I'm seeing here today and hearing is about investment. It's about empathy. It's about building agency and being curious about the world. And I think if there's anything that I wish you all could walk away with, it isn't, I want a couple $100 for a VR headset, although that would be a cool thing as well. But just to think about the ways in which technology can open up sort of the next chapter into learning. That's what gets me really excited. So, yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Testing. All right, give it up for our panelists. How was this experience tonight? It was amazing. I want to thank all of you for participating. Clap it up for yourselves. Clap it up for our panelists again. We also want to thank our sponsors, Meta for this experience, and Comcast, NBC Comcast for the live stream. What else?
And we also want to make sure that you follow us at Smithsonian AIB to keep up with all the latest and greatest events that we have coming up. We have a futuristic field day that's coming up on May 28th. If you have not signed up already, you might want to get signed up. It's going to be amazing. We're taking over the National Mall. We're also taking over our building and offering you a futuristic field day. So we want to thank our panelists again. Thank you all so much. Thank you for joining us.
And Just please make sure you leave your headsets on the seat as you exit. We just appreciate the experience. You guys have a great night.